Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something absolutely crucial from a truly eye-opening post by Coach Adolfo Salguero. As a veteran running coach, he is breaking down the critical and honestly sometimes fatal difference between running fitness and actual cardiac health. If you've ever thought hitting the pavement makes you invincible, or if you know someone who treats their marathon medal like a clean bill of health, you absolutely need to hear this.
Okay, let's just dive right into it. Coach Adolfo dropped this really startling quote in his article. You can have an unhealthy body, yet still be fit. Think about that for a second. We are so conditioned to look at a lean runner crossing a finish line and automatically assume they're the picture of perfect health, right? But as we're going to see today, the engine under the hood might be telling a completely different, much more dangerous story.
Section 1. The Miami Marathon Tragedy, a harsh reality check.
Just a couple of weeks before Coach Adolfo updated his post, there was a runner named Julian Autissier competing in the Miami Marathon. He was only 33 years old, but tragically, right at mile 19, he experienced sudden cardiac arrest and passed away. What is absolutely vital to understand here is that every single safety protocol was followed to the letter. Medical attention, hydration, heat safety, it was all there. The weather and course conditions were managed perfectly, which makes this whole event even more shocking. It's a really somber reminder that extreme youth and strict adherence to safety rules aren't always enough to prevent a disaster.
Moving to Section 2. Fitness does not equal health, shattering the illusion.
So the core disconnect we are talking about today really comes down to two very different realities. On one hand, you have your physical fitness. That's your mechanical ability to run long distances, build up muscle endurance, and cross those finish lines. But on the other hand, you're dealing with cardiovascular health. That's the invisible internal condition of your heart and your arteries. One is what the world gets to see on the outside, but the other is what actually keeps you alive on the inside.
Coach Adolfo hits the nail on the head here. He says these two concepts are not necessarily inclusive, and this doesn't mean you have a heart disease vaccine. It frustrates him, and rightly so, when the media kind of spins these tragic marathon stories to imply that running itself is the killer. It's not. What's usually happening is that a known or completely unknown underlying condition is just being pushed to the brink by the extreme physical stress of running.
Section 3. Histories fit but vulnerable. The cautionary tales. This isn't exactly a new phenomenon. This invisible threat has been quietly taking a toll on some absolute legends in the endurance world for decades. We're talking Jim Fixx back in 1984, Micah True in 2012, and Dave McGillivray needing emergency bypass surgery in 2018. These guys weren't just casual weekend joggers, they were absolute titans of endurance. So let's break down exactly what went wrong.
Take Jim Fixx, for example. He was basically the godfather of the American running boom. He wrote the massive 1977 bestseller, The Complete Book of Running. But at just 52 years old, he died of a massive heart attack mid-run. And his autopsy? It's honestly shocking for someone who looked to be in peak physical condition. One artery was 95% blocked, another was 85%, and a third was 70% blocked. Despite his incredible fitness, he literally couldn't outrun his genetics. His own father had actually died at 43 from a heart attack.
And we see this pattern keep repeating. Micah True, the famous elite trail runner from the book Born to Run, died on a trail at 58 from completely unknown cardiopathy and atherosclerosis. Then look at Dave McGillivray, the legendary Boston Marathon race director. This is a man who literally ran 3,452 miles across the entire United States, yet at age 63, his family's cardiac history caught up with him, and he had to get a triple bypassed. Extreme endurance just didn't erase their dangerous, hidden genetic realities.
Which brings us to Section 4, a coach's life-saving test, the pivot to the personal.
Back in 2019, during a routine yearly checkup, Coach Adolfo's doctor ordered a stress test. Now, on paper, standard logic would say this was completely unneeded for a highly active marathoner. But his doctor brilliantly insisted, basically just saying, because you never know. And thank goodness they did. They ended up discovering a severe congenital issue, which led straight to open heart surgery in June 2021. To put this into perspective, what was actually happening inside his chest was a congenital artery issue. Basically, unoxygenated blood was recirculating and completely bypassing his lungs. This was creating this massive, terrifying mechanical stress on his heart that could have provoked a fatal heart attack at any given moment during his intense runs. So while he looked wonderfully fit on the outside, internally, his heart was effectively suffocating. An invisible failure was just waiting to strike.
But here is the amazing part, a real message of hope.
Over 4,000. That is the staggering number of miles Coach Adolfo has safely run since his life-saving open-heart surgery. Because he actually got checked, and because they fixed that mechanical issue, he was able to safely return to the sport he loves. He didn't have to quit running, he just had to take the car into the shop and fix the engine.
And that leads us to Section 5, your urgent action plan, the community echo.
So what's the big takeaway here? Adolfo puts it perfectly in a reply to one of his readers. He says, make sure that getting checked doesn't stay in your to-do list. You truly never know. And honestly, that is the entire heartbeat of this explainer. You just cannot put this off. You can't assume that just because you ran a 5K, finished a half marathon, or crushed a gym session this weekend, that your internal health is perfectly fine.
And you know, this warning really extends far beyond just your heart. Down in the comments section of the article, a reader named Ricardo Brodner shared something super poignant. He pointed out how often we just brush off small changes, like a little extra fatigue or random aches, as just stress or getting older. Ricardo himself actually had cancer that was initially misdiagnosed because nobody sent him to the right specialist. His plea is incredibly simple. Always get a second opinion. It perfectly highlights the broader danger of delaying checkups or dismissing the warning signs our bodies give us.
Ultimately, it all boils down to a stark, binary choice. Which camp do you want to be in? On one side, we have the fix and true camp. These are the tragic post-mortem discoveries, incredible, inspiring athletes, but the truth about their health was only found out after it was too late. But then on the other side, we've got the McGillivray and Adolfo camp. These are the athletes who got checked, took proactive steps, caught the problem, and are literally surviving today to tell us their stories. Coach Adolfo wrote this because he desperately wants you in that second camp. You just aren't immune to the genetics of your ancestors or the invisible wear and tear inside your body. So, I want to leave you with one very provocative question to think about. When is your next checkup? Seriously, don't just think about it. Pull out your phone right now and go schedule it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and please, stay proactively healthy out there.